Hello and welcome to episode 56 for October 3rd, 2019 of the PvA Nightly Rundown. I am your host, Luke Croft. Happy Thursday, everybody. Friday Eve. We're almost to the end of the week, boys and girls. And this is the Nightly Gaming News Show where I run you through all of the gaming news that you may have missed throughout the day so that you don't look like a fucking idiot at the water cooler tomorrow. Hope everybody is doing fantastically. I know I am. Been having a pretty good week, pretty solid week. Last night I had a really great episode of PvA Radio. You should go check that out. That's up on youtube.com/PvA Radio right now. Also on podcast services everywhere. We talked about Sony opening up Crossplay to all the developers. We talked about the Troy Baker Borderlands 3 situation. Let's see what else. Apex Legends Season 3. We gave our impressions of that. And we also talked about the future of Bungie amid their release of the free-to-play version of Destiny and the new expansion for Destiny 2, Destiny 2 Shadowkeep. So definitely, I think, worth your time to go check out. A long episode, a good episode. But yeah, like I said, this is the Nightly Rundown. We're going to run through all of the gaming news. We do this live every single weeknight except for Wednesdays over here on twitch.tv/PvA Radio. Come over, watch it live with us, chat along with us. You know, this is much less structured than PvA Radio is. So you can come in, give your thoughts in the chat, give your thoughts on something entirely different in the chat, you know, derail the conversation. So, totally acceptable as well. But if you can't watch this live, the very next day we break it out topic by topic over on youtube.com/PvA Radio. Or you can watch it in its entirety as well. So still batting around the idea of making it an audio version as well. But I don't know. Well, I'll have to have some people ask for it just because I'm not sure if the format works, you know, because when we do get people in here chatting, it becomes more conversational. I'll draw crazy shit on the screen from time to time. So, you know, it's just it's gonna depend. If people want it in audio, we'll push it to audio. Let's see, a little bit of housekeeping here at the top. I already mentioned our new episode of PvA Radio. We've also got, we stayed on the phone on our Discord call last night afterwards, just to kind of talk about, bat around some ideas for new shows and new segments of PvA Radio. And just going to tease a little bit, like, we got some exciting stuff, I think, and some cool ideas brewing. And, you know, we'll have more on that in the future, but we want to add some more flavor to PvA Radio. I want to add some more things to the Nightly Rundown as well. But, yeah, so let's go ahead and just jump right into it, guys. No time like the present to get started. Let's start with the games that are releasing today. As always, we get this list from Kotaku.com. Zach Zweisen puts this together every single week, the weekend games. We're going to go over the games that released yesterday and the games that are releasing today. So, releasing yesterday on Wednesday, October 2nd, we had As Divine Chimera on Xbox One and PC. Warsaw on PC. We Were Here Too on Xbox One. SpookyGhost.com on Switch. All right, we're going to have to watch a trailer for that one. Marginalia on PC. Norman's Night In on PC. Drawn Down Abyss on PC and Mac. Race XXL Space on PC. The Long Return on PC. All right, SpookyGhost.com. We need to check this out. See what this is all about. So let's head on over to the YouTubes, which is what the kids are calling it these days, and look up SpookyGhost.com. .com. Okay, so this game has been out on PC for a while. It's made its way. So here's the SpookyGhosts.com trailer from a year ago. It's like a Metroidvania? I was going to say the boss looks very kinetic, very high energy here. A lot of mechanics, but he got going. Just took him a minute. I talked last night on PvA Radio about how I just kind of love cartoony horror, like classic witches and ghosts and things like that. Love that art style. So I don't know, this game's looks kind of fun. You can pet the cats too. Is that a buff ghost? So that's spookyghost.com. That is out, available now on Nintendo Switch. You could have played it on PC. I think I saw a full run through of the game in under an hour. So probably not a lot of content there to keep you busy. All right, let's go to Thursday's games. That's today, Thursday, October 3rd. Neocab on Switch and PC. Legrand Legacy, Tale of the Fate Bounds on PS4 and Xbox One. Candleman on Switch. A Whole New World, HOLE, not WHOLE. On PS Vita, we got a brand new Vita game launching. That's pretty cool. Paranoia, Happiness is Mandatory. I don't know if that's a typo or if it's supposed to say mandatory or if that's on purpose, but that's on PC. Fault Milestone 1 on Switch. Case Animatronics on Switch. Galaxy Champions TV on Switch. Cubics on Switch. Tic Tac Letters by Paugi on Switch. Hexagroove Tactical DJ on Switch. Hero of the Forest PC. Hexon on PC and Mac. Endless Fables 4 Shadow Within PC and Mac. Alive to Survive on PC and Mac. Every time I'm going through this list, and I don't vocalize this thought very often because I don't want to disparage anybody's work. You know, I know making game, well, I don't know like firsthand, but I am aware that making games is hard. And that for a lot of these people, it is their passion project. But I read through these lists and I have to ask myself, like, who the fuck's playing these games? Like, when a game like Tic Tac Letters by Paugi on Switch releases, what are their expectations of sales for that game? Like, what would be the level of success? And you know, it's different for all groups of people. I'm a small creator. I'm sure there's people who watch what I do and wonder, like, man, that dude makes a lot of videos over on YouTube and he streams all the time on Twitch. Like, who the fuck watches this? And they're right to ask that, I guess. And so I guess it's the same thing. Like, what I would view as a success, larger channels would view as a complete and utter failure. So, but I just look at this and I'm like, not only is it who's playing these, but like, how do they even go about hearing about them for the most part? Because like, I know we did Player 3 podcast for years, and it took us forever to find like a good aggregated list of everything that was launching on a console in order to, you know, read it out on the podcast each week. And like, now we have the Week in Games, which does a really great job of putting this together, but still, it's just like, it took me a long time to find an article like this. And so I just have to wonder, like, not only who's playing this, but how do these people expect their games to be found, you know? Mad Brock says maybe they're just trying to pad resumes, which, you know, I think that's probably true. You know, when you're, you know, I look at a lot of job boards that have like, because I want to get into marketing in the games industry. But, you know, I'll pull up stuff for developers and you even see this in marketing jobs as well, where it's like a qualification is that you have shipped at least 3 games or 2 games or you're credited on. So yeah, I can definitely see that as being but even then, it's still like, I guess you have to be super passionate about it, obviously, but just the amount of work that goes into these things, and then you put them up on the Switch online store for $3.99 or whatever. And it's like, how much of the cost that you've sunk into this are you really recouping on some of these games? And again, not to disparage the hard work of any of these individuals that, you know, put their nose to the grindstone and create something, because I think it's awesome. But I just wish that there was more discoverability built into these platforms that we play on. I think Steam probably has the best discoverability out of all of the platforms, and it's still not that great. But like PlayStation, Switch, and Xbox, like, I don't think any of those stores are set up in any kind of conducive way to draw attention to these. And I guess in the future, the goal will be like, oh, well, we make this game and maybe we can pitch it to Xbox Game Pass or whatever these other streaming services are going to be, and be featured on those. Because from what I understand, like even small games on Xbox Game Pass get a really big bump in engagement just simply from being on the platform. So maybe that's going to be the model of the future. But for today, I'm just like, how do they expect anybody to find this stuff? But those are your games that were released yesterday and are releasing today. We got a big day tomorrow as well, but we'll get to that when we do the show tomorrow night. Let's jump into the news, guys. It's a pretty busy night. I was a little worried because at about 7, I was like, man, I really don't have much to talk about here. And then in the last 2 hours, I found some more stuff that I think is gonna make the show a pretty good one. So let's jump right into it. First item on the list. This is required reading. This is a really great write-up from Johnny Cullen over at GameDaily.biz, and this is old news. This happened yesterday, and we didn't get a chance to really cover it on PvA Radio, so I want to talk about it here. But yeah, this is a long read, so I definitely recommend you guys finding this article. You can do so if you're hanging out in the chat. You can type !show notes, and it'll give you a link to the Google Drive, to the Google Doc that I use. And if you're watching on YouTube, we put the link to that doc in the description below. So, and that links out to every single article that we use. We're not going to read this whole thing word for word. I'm just going to kind of give you like a high level rundown of what it covers, and then we'll kind of talk about it from there. So a couple days ago, Shawn Layden, it was announced that Shawn Layden was leaving Sony, and it was odd. And I think I saw a tweet from Greg Miller that I think really illustrated how odd it is, because the only real word that Sony gave was this tweet that read, quote, "It is with..." Sorry, something like crazy loud just went by my window. Let me shut my window here. Getting a little freaked out. It's the spooky time of month. Don't want anyone looking in on me. All right. Anyway, here's the tweet from the official PlayStation account. Quote, "It is with great emotion that we announce that Worldwide Studios chairman Shawn Layden will be departing SIE. His visionary leadership will be greatly missed. We wish him success in future endeavors and are deeply grateful for his years of service. Thanks for everything, Shawn." A really, 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 really weird tweet to be like, it is with great emotion, not great sadness, not, they don't define the emotion that they're experiencing. They just say, we have a great emotion, and we are going to announce that Shawn Layden is leaving. And look, Shawn Layden isn't somebody who came in, gave 2 years of his life to Sony, and is moving on to something else. Shawn Layden has worked there for 30 years. He is a 30-year veteran of Sony, and the Greg Miller tweet really illustrated that Sony loves press releases, and this is not the only kind of executive level, kind of C-suite level shakeup that we've seen from Sony recently, and with the others that we have seen them release like full-on press releases to announce these changes. And so for them to not give that same level of communication and transparency into this move from Shawn Layden, like, really stoked up some speculation as to what's going on internally at Sony. Because again, it's not just Shawn Layden. We've seen Jim Ryan bounce around between a few different roles. We also saw, and I'm sorry, this article is so dense here. SIE Japan Asia President and SIE Japan Director Atsushi Morita has departed his roles effective immediately, according to a tweet from the Wall Street Journal's Takashi Mochizuki, which I believe that happened 2 days ago as well. And so we're seeing people shuffling around, moving into these different roles, and it's not unusual for people in these executive roles to want to move on to another project, or in like Shawn Layden's instance, or in Shawn Layden's situation, I'm sure that he can just retire pretty comfortably after 30 years of heading Sony and being an executive there for a considerable amount of time. He was moved to the VP of Sony Computer Entertainment Europe in the 90s. So he's been operating at like a C-suite level for the better part of 20 years, or probably close to his full 30 years there. So yeah, it's not unusual to see shakeups like this happen from time to time, but if you read the GameDaily.biz article, it talks about there being some kind of inner power struggles. I don't want to call it turmoil because I don't want to misrepresent exactly how these relationships are working and how things are falling apart, but they talk about there being some power struggles within the structure, and that Jim Ryan is kind of peddling a vision that may have been different from Shawn Layden's, which may have been different from others within the company, and that there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of clarity in moving into the PlayStation 5 generation, which I think is what makes this story really, really interesting, is that these things are happening at one of the most volatile times in a console maker's lifetime, which is going from one generation to another. So let's get to some of the more interesting parts here. About halfway through the article, Cullen reports, as the perceived power struggle between Ryan and Layden comes to a head, it's starting to affect the upcoming next-gen transition. An employee at a major third-party publisher with direct knowledge of the situation has told Game Daily the confusion resulting from the global reorganization has made the switch, already difficult as is, even more concerning. Speaking under the condition of anonymity, Game Daily's source relayed what their company is facing, quote, "This is the least amount of clarity we've ever had on a new console this close to transition," end quote, the source said. Quote, "I believe that the global restructuring is exponentially exacerbating the already difficult process of transitioning to a new generation, and now we're getting nervous. Read, very nervous," end quote. The third-party nervousness around the PS5's imminent launch isn't directly attributable to either leader, but there has been a fair amount of internal secrecy so that data and information isn't leaked before launch. Internal teams are slow to receive word about the new console, which means that third-party developers and publishers are being kept in the dark far more than in past cycles. And so if I understand this correctly, and if you're watching on stream or watching over on YouTube, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, the specs of a next generation console are decided on quite a ways before the actual architecture and design of the next gen console are decided upon. So they can communicate to these third parties who are outside of their, umbrella of control. They can say, hey, for the PS5, we're looking at using something comparable to this graphics card, comparable to this processor, able to handle up to this much this. Like here are the speculations to start designing your games within, although we have not completely settled on the architecture for those games. And so there's already a level of secrecy that goes on within developing these games, because the more people that know, the more opportunities there are to leak, and there's been speculation about and I'm not sure if this has ever been attributed to Sony, but I've seen it in other situations like this, where a company will kind of spread out multiple messages of possible specs or possible final design choices to see what comes out, so that they know where the leaks are coming from. So there's a lot of care that is taken with what's to come, and that's for a multitude of reasons. And I think the first reason is a competitive and strategic one, where, hey, Sony doesn't want the specs of their stuff releasing before Xbox has the chance to finalize the specs on theirs, because then Xbox could make a change and try to produce something more powerful at a cheaper cost. So there's that level of it, and then there's also the level of while we can see specs and assume things about the power of a console, I think there are many other things that go into what a what makes a console experience, you know? And we're talking about features, we're talking about UI, we're talking about services that are available. And so if you let your specs leak far in advance of when the console is going to come out, it's going to drive a level of speculation among fan bases that I think can get wildly out of control. So the secrecy is externally is pretty understandable, you know. However, if that secrecy or this communication is happening internally at the highest levels as well, where they're like, well, maybe we know that some people are on the way out, and maybe we know that there aren't going to be people who are here moving into the next generation, or even we know that there are people here that are likely going to be moving on to a competitor soon, then they may start to tighten up on that secrecy even more internally. And when you have that, and you've got all these connection points from worldwide third-party studios trying to get information, knowing who to go to, knowing who to speak with, I think is really difficult. And maybe it isn't just like leaving people in the dark because they may be moving on, but just if you read through this article and you see like, okay, Jim Ryan was over this region's games, and then he got moved to this region, and then he got moved to this, and that is a point of contact for somebody, you know, outside of the industry. And so if they've got a new point of contact, even something as simple as that can cause a lot of confusion. I work in a client-driven industry and marketing. I have about 20 clients that I represent, and you know, in times where you're transitioning who's managing an account, and you know, the client, you're trying to alleviate the confusion with the client of like, okay, well, do I reach out to you still, or like, what if I have questions about something that the previous marketing manager delivered? Like, even at the small level that I work in, at a company of 30, where I can just like proverbially shout across the hall to somebody, there's confusion. So I can only imagine, like, when you start moving around these high-level executives who are likely connecting with high-level executives at other publishers and other studios, when that shuffling starts to happen, and, oh, well, that's not my area of responsibility anymore, there's a ton of confusion there as well. There's also some talk in this article, discussion in this article about some ideological and strategic differences between Shawn Layden and Jim Ryan. For instance, Jim Ryan, you'll remember this from the Fortnite debacle, was just vehemently against crossplay, whereas Shawn Layden was more open to, we think that this is something that we need to start implementing. Ultimately, the crossplay stuff won out as it's been taken out of beta and opened up to all devs as of this week. And then also with cloud-based gaming as well, where Jim Ryan sees a real big he sees the future in cloud-based gaming, whereas Shawn Layden wasn't as sold as Jim Ryan was on that. And I think as we move forward, not so much the crossplay thing, because I think we're kind of past that conversation at this point, but as we move on, I think there needs to be a ton of alignment in Sony's approach and Microsoft's approach and Nintendo's approach to cloud-based gaming, because we're going to see it grow. We're going to see these services continue to grow and expand. And if there's not alignment there, it's hard to bring alignment with the third parties that you're trying to work with as well. So I don't want to go ringing any alarm bells, because I honestly think that these companies are structured in such a way that they can weather these storms. The only thing that gives me a little pause is the lack of clarity with the external communication here. But I don't think the world's on fire by any means moving into the PlayStation 5 generation. I just think it's an interesting look at a company who, for all intents and purposes, is really, really kind of secretive about the way that they operate. And so to have the veil pulled back just a little bit in order to see into this and see that, okay, well, maybe not everything is hunky-dory, but when you get leaders in a spot at a time as pivotal as transitioning console generations, you're gonna get disagreements. You're gonna get differing opinions on the direction that you need to go, but it's about the ability to settle on a direction and move in that direction. And I don't know why Shawn Layden left. The handling of it from Sony and the communication of it from Sony has me speculating that it was likely due to some vision differences with other executives that just weren't going to be able to be resolved, and that stuff happens. And so he moves on. But I think that a move like that, as cutthroat as it may appear, sometimes is the best for a company to make when it's just, okay, well, we're moving into a direction, into a future where we need to know that everybody here is on board with where we're going. But just kind of the brevity of the announcement, the kind of lackluster rollout of it with no press release, that's simply my speculation on it. But don't go like freaking out thinking that, oh shit, the world's on fire, PlayStation 5 is going to be terrible because there's all this internal struggle from within. Like, these things happen all the time. Maybe not in this kind of a spot, but some others may see it and say, well, that's just a really natural spot for a guy to want to move on. He's, accomplished what he's wanted to accomplish. He's made PlayStation 4 a overwhelming success. He's led the direction of a great stable of studios, and so just naturally stepping away at the end, I don't think is outside of the realm of possibility either. So we'll see how it shakes out. Hopefully Sony can get it together in terms of communicating with these other studios, and it's just one studio too, one studio who likely has one point of contact within Sony, or a team of people who he contacts within Sony. So it may not even be representative of the entire situation. Interesting stuff still, though. All right. Moving on. Next item on the list. This is from GameSpot, written up by, I'll tell you here in just a second, Kevin Nezovich over at GameSpot. It says, Epic addresses Fortnite crossplay matchmaking complaints, but isn't changing anything. Said, the article reads, ahead of Fortnite Season 11, which kicks off in just a few days, developer Epic Games is tweaking the way matchmaking works in the hit battle royale. Tweaking the way matchmaking works in the hit battle royale game. Although not all of these changes have been warmly received. In particular, many in the community have expressed concerns over the fact the game now pairs players from different platforms together, potentially giving those on certain platforms an advantage. In a new post on the official Fortnite website, Epic addresses these concerns, although it appears the developer is holding firm on its changes. Quote, with the rollout, we've seen a lot of discussion about potentially unfair competitive advantages from pooling players together across platforms and input devices. That's the thing you want to keep in mind here. The new matchmaking system, however, accounts for various skill levels across different platforms and control inputs, and groups players of similar levels together, end quote. The developer continues, quote, our goal with the new matchmaking system is to create fair matches for all of our players, which includes special considerations for each platform. This means that where similar skill exists, players may be paired against opponents from all platforms, whether they're using mouse and keyboard, a controller, or touch input. We are closely monitoring match analytics and your feedback, and will make adjustments to ensure everyone is playing a fair match, end quote. So this is interesting. We talked about, I think this was last week on the Nightly Rundown, Fortnite rolling out this skill-based matchmaking system that they're hoping is going to make games more competitive. At the same time, they're adding bots that will be available to play with on lower level games. But what I find most interesting about this is within this matchmaking system, when you're playing cross-platform, it's not taking into consideration your means of input. And so if you look at a game like Call of Duty Modern Warfare, the way that their crossplay works is if you are playing with a controller, you are only going to be matched up with other users who are playing with a controller. And you can't mix your parties to where you've got some people playing on mouse and keyboard and some people playing on controller. And It makes sense because they're supporting mouse and keyboard on all platforms that Modern Warfare is going to be released on. So you can play with your mouse and keyboard with your PC friends if you're on Xbox because it's going to support it. And the whole reason for that is there is a level of accuracy that can be achieved with a mouse that cannot be achieved with, which, put it this way, theoretically cannot be achieved with a controller. But what Epic is saying, the way that they're saying the matchmaking is intended to work is we're going to pull everybody together, regardless of the platform that you're playing on and your input preferences, which I think is really interesting considering that they have Fortnite on phone and they mentioned touch input on here. So you can potentially have matches where somebody playing with a mouse and keyboard is being matched up against somebody who is playing on their phone with their touch input. And it's all based off of your skill level with whatever input device you decide to play with. And so I guess you can assume that if you are a mouse and keyboard player and you get into a match and you realize, oh, I'm playing with a bunch of people who are playing on their touch screen, you probably really fucking suck at this game. I don't know. I think I see the hesitancy to want a system that puts everybody together regardless of input. We have been conditioned to say like, oh man, playing on mouse and keyboard gives you an advantage over playing with a controller. And yes, that is right in a vacuum. If you put two people, if you have the same guy and he's like same skill level, same game awareness, same mechanical skills, and you let him play 100 hours on keyboard, 100 hours on controller, that individual is going to be better with the mouse and keyboard. Just no doubt. Like in a vacuum, the mouse and keyboard is a far greater advantage than a controller. But your mechanical skills and your input device are only a part of what makes up your skill level at a game. It's all those other things too. It's about inventory management. It's about awareness. It's about decision making. And so you remove people from that vacuum and the scale starts to tip. If I am a console player who plays with a controller on Fortnite, but I have really, really great awareness, really, really great decision making, and I manage my inventory really, really well, I am probably going to be able to outplay somebody who is playing on a mouse and keyboard who does not have those things. And so I think what Epic is trying to say is that the skill-based matchmaking is an aggregate of everything. Like an averagely successful person on controller is still going to be able to beat an under average performing player on mouse and keyboard. And it'll ultimately suss itself out and over time, because your input device is only a portion of what makes you a good player or not. Take for instance, okay, I'll give you this example. I've played for almost 2,000 hours at this point of Overwatch across PS4, Xbox One, and PC. The game released in 2016. I bought my computer the day after New Year's, so the game had been out for almost 3 years before I ever had a chance to play it on PC. I am a higher rank on Xbox than I am on PC because there's also a skill gap in my familiarity with playing with mouse and keyboard, and it took a lot of getting used to become effective playing with a mouse and keyboard. I still don't feel like I'm that great at it, whereas I've been playing on a controller since I was 5 years old. And so there's a skill gap in me as an individual. Like, that is the vacuum. The vacuum is it's the same exact game that I have, that you play the same exact way, same exact strategy, but yet I've been playing one on with my controller, which has been my means of playing for 25 years, and one with mouse and keyboard that I've been doing for about 6 months at this point. And I'm better with the controller. So I don't think people should lose their minds over the fact that, oh, we're being grouped together because, oh, well, we all play with controllers. Now, if they didn't have some sort of matchmaking, like, I don't know if this is a visible score or a background score to talk about for your skill level. If they didn't have that and it was just like, we're bringing everybody in, we're lumping you all together, it doesn't really matter, I think you have a gripe there. But it seems like they've developed this matchmaking system in mind with those kind of like natural advantages you're going to get from a mouse and keyboard. They're well aware of that. So yeah, we'll see how this pans out. I don't see it as a big deal. I see where Epic is coming from with the way that they expect this to work. I'd love to hear from some actual Fortnite players about how they feel about it, because I also know that building's a big thing in Fortnite, and that I think is way easier for PC players than it is for players on mouse and keyboard players than it is for controller-based players. Or just allow people to say they only want to play, like add the option in, like, hey, I only want to be able to play with people who are using the same input device as me. But at the end of the day, like, we're all just playing for fun, man. Who fucking cares? 99.9% of us will never make a dime playing Fortnite. So, all right, moving on. Next item on the list, Blizzard says they are still a PC-first developer. This is from Andy Chalk over at PC Gamer. It says last year, what the world? Come on. PC Gamer, I feel like it's all the time. We've already cut one website out of the rotation for having just egregious typos at all times in their articles. And here we are. I feel like this pops up all the time with PC Gamer. It says last year announcement. It should say last year's. Last year's announcement of Diablo Immortal at BlizzCon resulted in an immediate and unexpectedly harsh blowback against the studio. Fans of the series complained that Blizzard spit in our faces, among other things, by unveiling a mobile game rather than the full-on Diablo 4 they wanted. The Diablo Immortal cinematic trailer now has a staggering 751,000 dislikes on YouTube compared to just 29,000 likes. It was ugly, and the fact that Blizzard has previously reassured gamers that it has, quote, multiple Diablo projects in the work, end quote, didn't do anything to calm the waters. Quote, I think the thing that we did a poor job of when we announced Diablo Immortal was contextualizing what we think the future can be and what we think of mobile in particular, end quote, Blizzard president J. Allen Brack said in an interview with GameSpot, quote, and I also think the key thing that was lost that we did a poor job double emphasizing is we are a PC developer first, and then we look for other platforms that we think are awesome that can support the types of gameplay experiences that resonate with the type of games and values that we want to put forth into the world. And the example of that is there was a little bit of backlash when we announced that we were going to port Diablo 3 to console as well, end quote. Understatement of the year through this whole entire quote. Now, look, I'm not going to relitigate the Diablo Immortal thing. I think we talked about it on PvA Radio. I'm sure you can go find it whenever that news came out. So I don't want to relitigate all that. But this quote is just really, really funny to me. Of just like, yeah, we probably could have done a better job of letting people know where we stand. And it probably was not the best idea to have employees of our company stand on stage and yell, do you guys not have phones, to people who were a little disappointed that they didn't get the news that they wanted about one of the biggest games that you have in the pipeline at your biggest annual event. Now, I am all for, I talk about this all the time when we're talking about state of plays, when we're talking about Inside Xbox, hell, even when we're talking about E3, about tempering expectations and all this stuff. And so I don't agree at all with the uglier vitriolic sides of the backlash that Diablo Immortal got, but I understand the disappointment. BlizzCon is a huge event, and look, BlizzCon last year was for the most part underwhelming across the board as far as announcements went, from what I understand. Now, I am not, outside of Overwatch, I am not very in touch and in tune with what the goings on of Blizzard, but I understand that it was a pretty big disappointment across the board, and it was marred especially by the announcement of Diablo Immortal. And so, like, I guess you can say I guess the question would be, how do you avoid this kind of shit? Because to ask a company as big as Blizzard, with as many resources as Blizzard, to not explore other means of other platforms to put their games on, I think is just unrealistic. I also don't know how many resources were pulled away from Diablo 4 in order to make Diablo Immortal. It's likely made up of a majority, at least, of like a whole new team. But the way you avoid this kind of stuff is just to set the expectations up front. Sony's been doing this with their state of plays. Like, I think at least in their last two, maybe all three of them, they've come out before and they've said, look, we are not going to be talking about PlayStation 5. I know they did it with their first one, actually, because that's when the Wired article came out with all the specs, and that was less than a week before the first state of play. And they came out and they said, look, we know that it's going to get out of hand. Everybody's going to be expecting us to show next-gen hardware. Just to let you know, at our upcoming state of play, we are not going to be talking about next-gen hardware. And it's a simple rule, but get out in front of your message. Control your own narrative. Like, hey guys, we want to let you know that we have a lot of projects that are not ready to be announced yet. Some of those projects are in the Diablo universe. We are going to talk about something with Diablo coming up that we're excited about, but maybe outside of what you guys are, but it's not going to be Diablo 4. You know? So I think, like, that's the main thing you can do. And then when you're standing on, or at the very least, when you're standing on stage, like, oh, here's Diablo Immortal. And then you talk about Diablo Immortal, and then you're like, but one more thing, boom, here's a teaser trailer for Diablo 4, because we know we're fucking working on it, and we know we're going to have it out eventually, but we also know you want to hear about it. So boom, here's the trailer for it. I think about, like, Bethesda. You know, they announced, like, Elder Scrolls Blades. I feel like they announced something else, Elder Scrolls wise, two E3s ago. And then they said, but look, we know you guys care about Elder Scrolls 6. So boom, here's a fucking shot of us flying over a canyon with Elder Scrolls 6 that pops up, and everybody's like, oh, okay, cool, yeah. We know you're working on it. It's just good to know that you know that we care, that you know that we know that you're working on it. You know, like, so I just think this is a trope of ours on all player versus all content, but about wanting to be in the boardroom. Like, was there anybody in... You're at this little powwow meeting before BlizzCon, right? You're several months out. You're in a planning meeting for BlizzCon, and you got Diablo Immortals on a whiteboard with a giant ass circle around it, right? You're like, all right, we're gonna bring up Diablo Immortals. What do we see? Potential issues. What do we want to try to accomplish here? How do we want to deliver and drive our message within this? All right, guys, let's just start brainstorming. You're telling me that there was nobody in that room. There wasn't a single soul in that room that was like, you know what, guys? It's cool that we're working on a Diablo mobile game, but I'm sure that the hardcore fans that are, like, paying money to travel to BlizzCon and to be there are going to want to hear more than just about a mobile game. You're telling me that there was nobody that said that? And if there was somebody that said that, why didn't you listen to them? like, hey, we're working on this mobile game. Just to let you know, it's not pulling resources away from the mainline game. This is something supplemental that we believe in, that we think is going to be really cool. But hey, we're still working on this. So you can be excited about both. And I'm sure Diablo players would be excited about a mobile game if they had been given some assurance right then and there that Diablo 4 was cooking. And I just find it hard to fathom that nobody at Blizzard even thought to bring that up in any BlizzCon planning meeting. But they're still dedicated to PC games, guys, so that's good. That's good. All right. Moving on. Let's stay in the Blizzard world. Next item on the list, Jeff Kaplan says that Smash Brothers can use any Overwatch character they'd like to. This is from Fraser Brown at PC Gamer. All right, this is going to dictate whether or not we use PC Gamer articles from here on out. We're looking for typos here. It says Overwatch is heading to Switch this month, but Blizzard Vice President and Overwatch Director Jeff Kaplan is keen to see the game's long list of heroes and villains appear on other Nintendo games, namely Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Chatting to IGN, Kaplan said he'd be up for any of the 31 characters from Overwatch showing up in Nintendo's Multiverse Fighter. Quote, to the Smash Brothers team, whatever character you want, we love them all, end quote. He said, quote, they're all our babies. You can have any single one of them. We have 31 to choose from, end quote. That's the diplomatic answer, but of course he has a favorite. That would be Tracer, a pretty great choice for Smash. So, you know, everybody and their brother is posting articles about, oh, this is the character that they should bring over to Smash. This is who we should get. I think Tracer makes sense. Tracer is the logo for the Overwatch League. Forgive my awful hair. I'm getting a haircut tomorrow. You know, Tracer's the logo. She's the Jerry West of Overwatch League. She is on the box art. She is front and center on most of their promotional materials. She is an OG DPS character. One of the OG heroes in Season 1 of the Overwatch League, where people loved watching players pop off with her. So she's iconic. But I don't know. Like, I don't think her kit, she's fast, she's got recall, but I just don't know how her kit would translate into Smash. So who are some of the other characters that I think would work? I'd love to see, I think Roadhog would be fun. Kind of a tankier, you know, having a tankier character in the game. He's got his hook, the whole hog ability. I guess his breather would be something that would be you'd have to figure out some other ability or use for the breather mechanic, because you can't like restore health in I don't think there's any characters that can restore health in Smash. Let's see who else. I think Hammond could be fun with his like mobility like being able to hook onto things. He can turn into a ball and roll around. He has the landmines, which can be fun. He's got the pile driver mechanic, which is awesome. Mad Brock in the chat says Winston. I think Winston would be cool, you know, being able to play a little defensively with your bubble shield, hopping on enemies. Primal Rage would be a lot of fun. So yeah, there's 3 tanks that I think would be a lot of fun. I saw some people tweeting about OG Brigitte being in it, and I'm trying to think if there's really any other support player that would make sense. Zenyatta, maybe? I know I'm probably forgetting somebody like super obvious within it, but maybe Lucio, I guess, could be fun with like his wall riding. He's got a lot of speed. He can boop. But then again, a lot of his abilities are speeding up other players, are healing other players. So like you wouldn't be able to have his whole kit. Genji, Mad Brock says in the chat, he'd be fun. He's got multiple projectiles. His ultimate is melee based with his dragon blade. So yeah, that would be cool. Let's see. I feel like I'm forgetting obvious people. I was moving to DPS now. Let's see. Overwatch list, hero list of heroes. Who else we got? Doomfist could be a lot of fun. He's got a ton of mobility in his kit. He's got some range with his projectile, with like his fist. What makes Doomfist awesome is he is the projectile for most of his abilities. You know, being able to do something really cool with Meteor Strike. Let's see who else we got. Oh my gosh, this is not a great way to show this list. Here we go. Let's see who else do we think would be cool. Farah, I think, would be awesome. Her boop ability, she's got rocket barrage, she's got her jetpack boosters, so that would be cool. Yeah, I think there's a lot of really cool options. Junkrat would be a lot of fun with his tire. He has extra mobility with his landmines and stuff like that as well. But yeah, especially I think Brigitte probably makes sense because of her brawler melee style. Diva would be a lot of fun. Being able to remech, you could have a lot of fun with those mechanics as well. I don't know. Now, that's part of the question of which character, but the other question is, would Nintendo do it? And I just don't know. Like, obviously we've gotten Banjo, we've gotten some other third-party characters into Smash. But I think that it is always with a lot of careful consideration that those decisions are made. And I feel like this Overwatch train has only left the station for a month and a half. And you know, Blizzard's been in communication with Nintendo about this, I'm sure, for years. There was something that came out earlier today about how they'd been eyeing the Switch, getting a port onto Switch since the day the Switch came out. So, you know, I'm sure there's been conversations going on, but I just think Nintendo's really guarded about who and what they allow into Smash, and we'll see. I don't know. I don't think Nintendo sees Overwatch as something that is like that defines who they are. Also, my chair is just being really fucking awful tonight. It's being so bad. Oh my gosh. If you guys have a recommendation, this is an aside, but if you guys have a recommendation for a really solid, not just gaming chair, but it can just be an office chair of any kind. We're about to get new work from home policies at my job, and I work from home almost every single day. And part of that is going to be them paying like a considerable chunk for a new chair. I want to get a really nice chair. I got this one because I had pretty good reviews, but it's turned out to just be a piece of crap. Like the arms already falling apart, the cushions all out of it already. Like I'm not comfortable sitting in this thing at all anymore. So if you guys have a recommendation for a gaming chair, hit me up. I definitely want to hear it. Because with those things, I'm so hesitant to pull the trigger. Like, I just want to hear firsthand from somebody like, oh yeah, I have this Secret Labs chair and I've had it for years. It's fucking awesome. Never buy another chair again. Like, that's what I want to hear from somebody. Anyway, Overwatch characters in Smash I think would be really fun, really cool. Let's get to it. I'd love to see it. I don't know how open Nintendo is to doing it, but if they are, I'd get into Smash just to, especially if they had Diva, just to one-trick Diva or Farah, like the good old days. Moving on. Show's running long tonight, guys. Next item on the list, from my old stomping grounds at Twinfinite, Mario Kart Tour smashes Nintendo mobile records with 90 million downloads in 7 days. This is from Alex Gibson. It says, after its first 7 days on the App Store, Mario Kart Tour crossed the finish line with 90 million downloads to become Nintendo's biggest mobile game launch to date. It sped past previous record holder Animal Cross Pocket Camp with 6 times more downloads in the same amount of time. The game hasn't quite matched the total week one revenue of Nintendo's best mobile efforts, though. Mario Kart Tour comes in third with $12.7 million, while Super Mario Run and Fire Emblem Heroes mustered $16.1 million and $28.2 million respectively. There's a slight caveat with Super Mario Run's figures, however, given that it was a premium product and that revenue actually dropped off significantly following its release window. Look at this chart, guys. Look at this. the power of Mario Kart, and we already hashed out why I think Mario Kart's so successful on mobile. I think it's an easy game to translate to mobile controls. I think it is a game that even those who aren't gamers per se have a connection with. Everybody has a memory of themselves playing Mario Kart in a friend's basement or at a youth group party or, you know, wherever you hung out as a kid. Everybody has played Mario Kart. 90 million though. The next highest at 14.3 million downloads, so over 6 times as much. I do find it fascinating though that they were only able to get third place for the amount of money that was spent, because yes, Super Mario Run was a premium product. How much was Super Mario Run? For some reason I remember it being like $6.99, but it may have been $10. Super Mario Run price. Okay, it was $10. So a month of Mario Kart Tour's like premium pass, I don't know exactly what they call it, is $5. So even when you consider that, to only get we did this napkin math on the first day, so let's do this again. Let's get our calculator going here. Google calculator here. Is there anything else that you can buy in the game outside of just subscribing to the game? Like, I want to do this right. Mario Kart Tour microtransactions. Here we go. Does it have microtrans? Okay, so there are other microtransactions here to begin with. So you can purchase rubies. This is outlined over at imore.com. So your rubies, $2.99 for 3, $5.99 for 10, $12.99 for 23, so on and so forth. And then you also you pay $5 a month, I think, for the subscription. I know that they've got to talk about the subscription here, right? They don't. How do they not talk about the subscription? Oh well. All right. Well, let's just think of this in terms of only subscriptions. So you've got 12,700,000 divided by 5. So that is 2.5 million of 90,000. So of 90 million. So divide that by 90. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3 equals. That means at the very best, if we're just talking subscriptions, I don't know why I did that. I needed to multiply that by 100. If we're only talking subscriptions, that is 2.8% of your user base of 90 million have spent money on your game. If we're just talking subscriptions. But then you have to assume with the rubies that anybody willing to buy the subscription, anybody willing to buy the rubies is probably willing to buy the subscription in order to get the content that's behind that paywall first. So we're talking less than 2% of this player base has spent money on the game. And so I have to wonder, like, okay, 90 million is a huge success, huge, massive success in terms of install base. But in terms of actual ROI, like converting downloads into paying customers, is Nintendo going to consider this a financial success? Because $12.7 million on 90 million downloads, just, I don't know, it doesn't seem to add up to me. And so I think that obviously with a subscription model, the idea is not only are we going to get people paying monthly for this thing, but we're going to get people paying monthly and they're going to forget they're paying monthly. And so you've just kind of got like recurring revenue constantly coming back in. So, yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see if they think this is a successful model that they're going to continue to adopt moving forward, or if they think this is a failure. Because just on first glance at the numbers, I would be like, damn, this isn't really working that well in terms of pulling money in. Just scratch my nose at $12.7 million. Don't mind me. All right, next item on the list. Here's an EA fuck up for you from Luke Plunkett over at Kotaku. It says EA website leaks personal details of FIFA players. It says when players, including many of the world's best, went to sign up for the FIFA 20 Global Series earlier today and started entering their personal information, they noticed something weird. There was already information on the screen, someone else's information. At the point where players registering were asked to confirm their details, they were shown a screen displaying the personal details, including email address and date of birth of a different player. And here's the tweet from George Hughes. My friend got a huge pull in the data breach pack. Hashtags own Algerian arrow Yanni Araba. We'll send you a birthday card. So this is the information that they were able to receive is grayed out. Email, ID number, country of residence, birthday, and then it looks like also their console account information. And now you may look at that and say, I mean, it's just it doesn't even really have their name or anything like that. It's just their email address. I am so sick of these stories, man. There was a big DoorDash data breach. There was a massive Words with Friends leak, I think, this week. I feel like every time you turn your head, there's a company just being completely and utterly irresponsible with your personal information. And it makes it really hard to function with any kind of confidence that what you put into an online form is going to be handled with care. And that is a currency at this point. I work in marketing, all right? I know how valuable somebody's email address is. It is a currency when you're talking about lead generation, when you're talking about converting people into sales. If you can get somebody's email address, better yet, if you can get their phone number, like you have an exponentially higher rate of closing those people into sales than if you never get any information from them. So it is a currency. And it should be treated as such by companies who require you to give these things over to interact with their products in any way, shape, or form. And that's the problem is like, and now look, this was for a specific, this was for the specific global series for FIFA. But EA also requires you to like give an email to sign up for for an EA account in order to manage your account online and stuff like that. If you're playing like Madden on your console or something like that, you register an EA account. And more now, in order for us to interact with these products, we have to be willing to part with our information. And it is just exhausting to see the level of irresponsibility that's shown by these companies with something that is very personal to me, my email. I use my email for everything. And I've gotten to the point where I'm like, I need to just create a sign-up email. It is an email that I sign up for everything with. I keep it separate from all of my communications. And I may just start doing that because I'm just sick of seeing this shit. Like I was, and this is on a much bigger scale, but I was a part of the breach of Equifax, which is a number I can't change. You can't cancel your social security number. And now, I have to live in constant worry that somebody's going to take my information, Mangle says, I have a thing I'd like to bring up. Go for it. Go for it. Am I excited for the Medieval PS4 remaster? So I played the demo, and I will caveat this by saying I did not play the original Medieval when it came out. And I think a lot of remakes and remasters are predicated on you having played the original version of it. So I played the demo and I was like, okay, I really like the art style. I'm really big on like cartoony Halloween stuff. So I really like the art style, but the combat just did not really connect for me at all. Like the gameplay itself just didn't really connect for me. And I have to think that is partly due to just me not having any memories attached to it. So Mangle, did you play it before? Did you play the original version of the game? They say, fun fact, the gargoyles you heard have the same voices from the 1998 version. Yeah, that's I do like that. That is really cool. And you own the original. Yeah, see, and I think that's for a lot of remakes and remasters, I think that's a big thing. Like connecting back to that nostalgia that you had the first time you played it. And so yeah, I was excited for it just based on the trailers and seeing it.
Download me a hoagie off the internet.
Yo, Mangle, thank you so much for the follow. Yeah, I was excited for it based on the trailers, but yeah, hopping into it and actually playing it, I was like, I don't know. For $30, it may still be worth it, and I may have more fun. Like the more you go into the world, the more you upgrade and get diverse weapons and things like that. So who knows? But I'm excited that you were excited about it, Mangle. What do you think about the direction that Mario Kart Tour is taking? Yeah, we just talked about that a little bit. I think about how it had 90 million downloads, but it's only made $12.7 million. And I think that's strange. I think Nintendo's probably asking themselves, like, is this subscription model the way to go? And I think it was kind of I think I mentioned this last week. I didn't mention it when we just talked about it, but it was strange timing and unfortunate timing because the subscription stuff kind of came out around the same time that we were learning about Apple Arcade, and they're the same exact price, $5 a month. But for Mario Kart, it's that you get a couple extra little goodies, and for Apple Arcade, you get 80 extra games. And so the pricing just didn't seem to align when you look at these two things side by side. So, and I have no idea why Luigi's not in it. Maybe him and Mario had a falling out. Who knows? All right, let's move on. Last item on the list. The WGA will no longer award video game writing. This is from Matt Kim over at IGN. It says the Writers Guild of America confirmed today that it is dropping the video games category from its annual awards until further notice. In a statement to IGN, a WGA spokesperson confirmed that, quote, there won't be a video game writing award in 2020, end quote. The WGA did say that the category may return in the future. However, quote, when there's a critical mass of video games covered by the WGA in order to provide a meaningful award selection process, end quote. The WGA awards have had a video game category since 2008. Previous winners include God of War, Horizon Zero Dawn, and The Last of Us. We'll get to another pertinent quote here in just a second. I do want to point out, I went back and looked at the previous winners of this WGA Video Game Writing Award, and they all seem to come from the same stable of publishers. So there was a lot of Sony in there, as you can see, God of War, Horizon Zero Dawn, The Last of Us, Assassin's Creed, a lot of Ubisoft games on there. There was I think one of the Tomb Raider games was on there, so Square Enix. It's a lot of big publishers, and that's going to make a lot more sense here in a second. Here was Neil Druckmann's response first, quote, very disappointed at the WGA for removing the video game category from their awards, end quote. A misguided slap in the face for writers in games, end quote. Here's the one I want to highlight, though. Quote, this is from Portal and Half-Life writer Chet Falzich. On Twitter, said, quote, I've never joined the WGA and never will. To win this award, you have to be a member. When they asked us to join so we could win, we could pay dues, but not vote because game writing isn't real writing. Not like have a short story published in a zine read by 12 people, end quote. How fucking cool using the word zine, first of all. So what I'm assuming they mean by a critical mass of video games is that there are just not enough people willing to play ball with these awards. And this is not just with the Writers Guild of America. I am sure that this is the way that it works for a bevy of of award shows, that you have to pay to be a member of it to even be considered. And I think that makes a lot more sense when you look. That makes it make a lot more sense when you look and see, oh, it's Sony, it's Ubisoft, it's Square Enix, it's very big publishers that are willing to pay the money to get the recognition so that they could slap a sticker on their box on a re-release of it to say, winner of the Video Game Writing Award, or, put that up in some sort of sizzle reel trailer or something like that. And so much good writing has been done in the quad A space, not the quad A, I'm sorry, the double A space and the independent space. We have not seen quad A yet, and that is what Microsoft is working on with the initiative. But that I can see how Hellblade, before Ninja Theory got swept up by Xbox, was like, hey, we can't really afford to join the Writers Guild of America. It's not really the best use of our money, despite the fact that that game is incredible. The story in that game is fucking incredible. So, and plus, there's tons of awards already that exist within the video game sphere itself, and I think a lot of times, video games inclusion in something like the WGA is this rat race that games have been on for years and years, where they try to legitimize themselves with other kinds of media. Like, if we can get people talking about video games next to movies, next to television, next to books, next to short stories, next to poetry, then in some like high level way, we've made it. We are now legitimate. And I think that there's less and less of that feeling going around in the game space. I think people just that work in that space love the medium, consider themselves legitimate already, and don't need the validation from these kinds of organizations, especially if they're going around saying, hey, you got to pay us money. But if you pay us money, you aren't able to vote still in it because you're not real writers. Like, that's shitty. So I don't know. Is it a slap in the face? Absolutely. But I think it makes sense. Game studios don't want to play ball. WGA wants to take their ball and go home because they're like, hey, we seem to be giving this shit to the same people over and over again. to the same publishers over and over again. Not a lot to choose from here. All right, guys. Well, that's going to do it for the PvA Nightly Rundown for tonight. I'm actually going to log off now as well and get to bed. I slept terribly last night, so I appreciate you guys tuning in. Mangle92 again, thank you so much for the follow. We do this every single weeknight except for Wednesdays over here on twitch.tv/PVA Radio. The reason we don't do it on Wednesdays is because that's when we do our weekly gaming podcast where me and two co-hosts get together and talk about games. That's called PVA Radio. You can find that on podcast services everywhere. If you can't catch it live, though, you can find it on youtube.com/PVA Radio the very next day, where we break it out topic by topic, or you can watch it in its entirety. But I'm going to get out of here, guys. I appreciate everybody's love, everybody tuning in, chatting, hanging out. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Make sure you subscribe, hit that like button. And until tomorrow night, we love you. Goodbye.